Hello, hello, and welcome to the second half of season 5. I can't believe that we're already halfway through the year. My name is Debbie Heiser. I help entrepreneurs make a lot of money doing what they love without sacrificing what's important to them. I feel an urgency to help people let go of past messaging so that they can lead a lit up life. And with that, I want to again welcome you. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the show.
Straight from the corners of my mind is where I find my sanity. It's a place.
Hello there. Before we get started with this week's episode, I wanted to pop in here just really quickly and offer up to you 2 different ways that you can work with me. I have private clients that I work with throughout the year to help them quantum leap their business, identify what they want their life to look like so that the business becomes a conduit to that versus running their life. And then the second one is a women's mastermind. This is the second one to kick off, and I'm so excited to start this one in 2024. And I believe the retreat is going to be potentially in Belize, but keep an eye out for it. But this is where we get together, again, quantum leap your business, but it's with a group of other really high vibrational, successful businesswomen that want to level up, want to continue to progress in their achievements and in their business. So with that, click away on the website and check out those exciting events. I'd love to either see you as a private client or in the 2024 Women's Mastermind. Hello, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Lead Your Life with Debbie Heiser. I'm your host, Debbie Heiser, and I am here today with Andy McNeill, and I'm excited to have Andy come on. Andy and I didn't really know each other until we got on the phone this morning. But that happens in the podcasting world. We look for other podcasts to be on where we think we can be of value. And I'm excited to talk to you, Andy, about how you're leading your lit up life, how you help other people by working with organizations to do the same. And so I'm going to let you introduce yourself professionally. I always feel like we do a much better job of doing that than other people. And so I'm going to let you do it, and then we'll just kind of take the conversation from there.
Yeah, thanks so much, Debbie. So nice to talk to you and your legion of fans. It's always awesome to talk to someone in business who really knows what they're doing. And you've had, a pretty incredible life coming from Citibank and everything that you did with them and being in training. So I think we have a lot in common. So my name's Andy McNeill. My pronouns are he and him. And I own AMI. We're a global meeting services organization, and we work with the world's top brands that have a positive and often life-changing impact through live and virtual meetings. And so been doing it for 22 years. It's been a wild ride and a great ride. And we have a fantastic organization that really focuses on bringing the hospitality mindset to corporations to help them engage their customers and also their employees to make sure that they run perfect meetings and have a great experience doing it. And it's been fun. I'm happily married with 2 beautiful twin 12-year-olds and 2 mini Dalmatians. And that's pretty much my life because they're in middle school and that's all I do. That and work.
There's truth to that. My son is an 8th grade science teacher, and he just went back to school this week. And I'm like, God love you with middle school.
Oh my goodness, middle school. Yeah, it's a whole new world, middle school for sure.
Yeah. So
that's a whole other podcast.
Exactly. So twins and 2 dogs. So they each claim a dog.
They do, and it was by design. We actually bought them at the same time to give them to the kids, and they've raised them. But it's all mushed together now.
Yeah, absolutely. So Andy, let's back up. Tell me, how did you get into this industry?
Oh, wow. Well, I've been running meetings and events since high school. I was on the student council, and then I went to Florida State, my alma mater, and I worked for the athletic department and ran events for them for years. I also had a summer job where we did lots of events. So it's always been in my blood. When I got into the real working world, I worked for large corporations and did exactly that, mainly in marketing roles, and decided right after September 11th that I believed I had something I could offer and a message I could offer to clients to really provide positive meeting and event experiences. So we opened up, put a shingle on the door and started AMI, and it's been a wild ride. So it's been great, and it's really fits my personality. I like people. I like to make people feel good.
Yeah.
I like to make people happy, and doing that through meetings and events, I think, is the most natural way. And lots of corporations use meeting and events to convey their messages, their experiences, or their rewards, and so that's what we do here at AMI.
Fantastic. And so, Andy, just really quickly from a tactical, what's the smallest type of business that you work with up to the largest?
Well, we really focus on the Fortune 500. So that is our strategy that we implemented about a decade ago. So we go in and look for large corporate contracts and through procurement, and then establish relationships with the key stakeholders inside those organizations, and then execute them. So we found that, being able to work, and we've learned so much from just incredible partners like Bristol Myers Squibb and Salesforce and Cleveland Clinic and CVS, all clients that have provided incredible education for us as AMI, but we've been able to convey and help them with their meeting and event strategy to create awesome experiences. So, from a holistic standpoint, we're really about putting hospitality into the meeting process, because there's lots of details around meetings, a lot of planning going on around meetings, a lot of travel logistics, and sometimes it's just not fun. So how can you take that information, make it salient for everybody that's involved in the process, but also create impactful experiences for the end user, which is the attendee?
Yeah, thank you, Andy. And I have to say, I was selfishly asking that. I read that you only worked with Fortune 500 companies, but I thought, well, maybe they have another arm, because I actually host a women's mastermind every year, and we do 2 retreats. We just got back from Mexico, and we're going to Costa Rica in April.
Sounds
And so I
fun.
thought,
Sounds
oh, I
fun.
wonder.
Yeah, so just because of scale and volume, we look
Yeah,
for business that repeats itself, and we can repeat the same model over and over
yeah,
again with our clients. It helps
smart.
for efficiencies for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That's smart. So I want to back up for a minute, because there's a couple of things in here that I grabbed as you were talking. So you started this right after 9/11, but I was in the air when all of that happened,
Oh
and I
my
was stuck
goodness, God
for like
love you.
5 days. Yeah, it was
Yep,
crazy. And like travel kind of stopped, and
it
so did
did.
in-person meetings for a while. So there's a
It
couple
did.
of
18 months
bumps.
or so. Yeah, it
Yeah.
really.
So how did you start it with that?
That's so I left the company I was working for because that happened. And I think a lot of people, I always say to folks like, who are itching to start a business, I'm like, start now, because, you don't never know what's going to come up. And I think for 9/11, in these big impactful, the Great Recession, 9/11, COVID, these things, spawn entrepreneurs, because
Absolutely.
people look back at themselves and say, what am I really doing? Is this what I want to do? What do I really want to do? And that's exactly what happened to me. I was 32 at the time. I'm like, if I don't start my own thing now, I'm so old. I'm not, right, 32. I'm
Right.
so old, I'm never going to be able to do it. That was my mindset. And I had worked for 2 really, really incredible entrepreneurs and mentors who really showed me what great product and service looked like. One was named Lawrence Herkimer, who ran the National Cheerleaders Association. And I was senior VP of marketing and sales for them. And boy, they know how to put on a great experience, and they still do to this day. And so I learned a lot through them. I was also a cheerleader in college.
Okay.
So that's how I got my connection there. And then I moved into the investment banking world, where I was rolling up meetings and events uh, uh, firms. And so during that process, I got to see lots of different ways people were running their businesses. And I'm like, boy,
Yeah.
these people are doing really, really well. They've created a successful business, but the product is kind of okay, not great, nothing groundbreaking. And then I landed with an entrepreneur named Christine Finizzi, who just had the magic sauce, and she taught me so much. And I was with her on 9/11 in her organization. And to your point, the entire travel and meetings world pretty much dried up for about 6 to 9 months. And it took another 9 months or so for it to get back on its feet. And I just felt it was time for me to go out on my own and try something. And not that I had any grand plan of starting a meeting and event company right out of 9/11, but I did. And we had
Yeah.
a few tough years, but those tough years really set the basis for how we marketed ourselves and sold ourselves, and allowed us for when the industry came back to be really, really successful and securing those contracts. So that's my story. And, I think, the entire experience of having entrepreneurs that can teach you
Yeah.
in whatever industry you're in, how to, really have an impactful product or service in that industry is really, really key.
Yeah. And Andy, I'm so glad you brought that up. I want to touch on this and then I want to go back to pivoting. But it's so interesting to me sometimes when we get into these moments where you can choose fear or excitement.
Yeah.
Right. And fear and excitement feel the same way in your body. It's your mind that determines what you want to believe of that. And I have seen so many people go the opposite way, right? Not use their creativity,
Yeah.
go into fear. But I've seen so many people where I live. There was a big company here called Coldwater Creek. It was a women's clothing store. They closed. And all of a sudden, there's all these fantastic new type of services in Sandpoint. I mean, and it's a small community that popped up, and these entrepreneurs that were doing things and starting new businesses. And to me, it's an exciting time because it helps you look forward and dig into something that maybe you've thought about doing, but it was the extra push that happened when maybe a business closed or you got laid off to go do it.
Yeah. So we had, 9/11 was our impetus. Then we went through the Great Recession.
Yeah.
Then we went through COVID. So we've really had, three major impacts, and each one has been different. COVID was, especially in our business, a whole new
Yeah.
there. So a lot of our competitors actually went out of business. Either they couldn't transition fast enough because they were too big, or they were scared and and then just shut and then couldn't recover because of that. I have a very talented senior management team and an incredible organization of meeting planners and coordinators and sourcing managers, and we all put our heads together and said, what are we going to do? How are we going to achieve this? And we had already supported virtual meetings,
Good.
but the vast majority of our business was live meetings, and so live meetings died. And so we pivoted very, very quickly and very successfully. We're able to bring almost all of our clients onto virtual platforms and keep them moving. And you're right. You can either you can either say, okay, what are we going to do, or and there was about 3 weeks where I was deer in the headlights for sure, trying to figure out what we were going to do and how we were going to approach this. We could have easily gone down the other rabbit hole, which would have been reduced staff, which I really didn't want to do because we have a very family oriented organization, and we're focused on making everyone successful, and we didn't want to do that. And the government certainly helped with
Yeah.
PPP and all the other loans and incentives they offered. That allowed us to stay open and make that pivot, and then exponentially grow from that. So yeah, absolutely, I agree with you.
Yeah. And it's so part of what I'm hearing you say too is an important thing. I also think as entrepreneurs and small business owners is surround yourself with great people.
Oh man, yeah. The best thing I ever did was hire a director of HR who hired better than I did.
Yeah.
As a small business, a lot of times, those positions are just kind of wants to have, and you can't, and you can't really afford them. But I was never a good hiring of people. I saw things in people that really excited me, and I thought there, but I wasn't really good of establishing the processes and the roles of getting them there. So having a good person to do that for you, whether it's a third party partner or bringing someone in house, can make a world of difference in look identifying the right people and then putting them in what we call the right seats. And when you do that, nothing can stop you because everyone's working in their skill set and what they're passionate about. And that makes all the difference in the world, is having that great team to service your clients. When you're in the service business, like we are here at American Meetings, you have to, because you're only as good as your last event. One
Absolutely.
event can break years and years of good work. So it's really important that we execute flawlessly every single time.
Yeah. And Andy, you also bring up something too about self-awareness, right? And this is one thing that I see that separates successful businesses from businesses that struggle and are kind of addicted to the struggle, is that the leaders of the organization are self-aware and they understand what their lane of genius is and what it's not. And then they find people
Yeah.
to fill in those gaps where other people that kind of go on their ego, it doesn't work for, so it's a short-term
Yeah.
fix.
I see that all the time. And you hit the nail on the
Yeah.
head, is those people that get involved in everything. And listen, every entrepreneur at some point has their hand in everything that they do. And that's really good when you're at a certain size, because it helps with quality of product and making sure that, you're conveying the right message to everybody. But when you're, where we are now, over 100, team members that are executing in over 70 countries, I can't do it. I simply can't. And having that key team in place, and I have a senior team that works with my general manager, and that allows me to work on the business. And a lot of entrepreneurs have said that it took me 22 years, maybe 20 years, but we've been able to implement that and allow me to work on strategic relationships, strategies, ways to save money that I wouldn't necessarily have the time to focus on if I was into the day-to-day operations of the business. So if you can get there, there's some great programs to help you get there. And we've implemented several of them here at AMI over the years, and that's really helped us. But yeah, having that team in place and then knowing what you want about having, the work-life balance, which we believe is incredibly important, not just for our managers or our owners, but also for every team member here, because that's what's going to keep them with us, because there's lots of great companies to work for, and we want them to work for AMI.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I appreciate that very much so. And you talk a lot about AMI, like the customer and client and employee experience. Tell me, like, what sets you apart from other companies in the same lane?
The age-old question, what differentiates you? So there's a lot of great companies that do what we do. What we really focus on is high touch experiences and high touch services, making sure that every detail is in every task is checked. Now, we do make our mistakes and we own up to it. And it's the
Sure.
first thing, is one of our key tenets, is first, never let them see you sweat, but also own up to your responsibilities, be responsible for your actions. And, we have been in situations where, you know, things just happen. It's events, it's hundreds of people, there's lots of moving targets, people are missed sometimes. You have to own up to it and you have to be honest about it. If you're open and honest with your clients, they're not going to fault you. Now, you don't want to be doing it all the time, but when you have those hiccups, you need to have established those emotional deposits with those clients to make sure that they understand that, hey, listen, it's okay to mess up as long as you own up to it. And when you do that, and really focus on quality of product,
Yeah.
is really important. I think the other thing that differentiates AMI is we're really forward thinking when it comes to technology and engaging enterprise level technology to execute our programs. And so we invest in that, and that makes a huge difference. That allows us to work at lightning speed where our competitors may either have, kind of an old system because they're a huge big company, or they're
Right.
a mom and pop and don't have any systems at all. I think we've hit the right balance of having the technology working for the benefit of our clients.
Nice. So I'm assuming you have kind of a department. I'm assuming that because I feel the older I'm getting, it's
Oh,
funny
tell me about
because
it,
I'm
right?
feeling older and I'm like, wait a minute, I need my nieces to show me how to do this thing. Makes me feel a little old, but
Oh, my 12-year-olds just, they just run circles around me when it
yeah.
comes to technology. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we do. We have a technology team that focuses not only on the technology that we work on it here at AMI, but what we offer to our clients on site, which is incredibly important. If you think of the registration systems,
Yeah.
the apps that you can do for meetings and events, the virtual platforms. I mean, it's just nonstop. I mean, we really are a technology agnostic company, and we have to learn them to service our clients, and that's what we do. But
Yeah.
it really helps to differentiate ourselves.
Yeah, for those of you listening, there is I've been involved in a lot of events, not necessarily behind the scenes, but I think about I used to go to this Intuit thing that they had in California all the time, and they're
Hmm.
always on the leading edge of technology too. And
For
I
sure.
remember going the first time, I don't know, this was probably 4 or 5 years before COVID, and they had an app where you could figure out where all the rooms were, and it was the first time. And that's when Uber was just emerging, and they were there getting feedback from and so the technology piece has really grown. Do you tend to do all in person, all virtual, or are they mixed as well?
Well, they've really shifted over the years because of COVID. So, we're about 80-20, 75-25, depending on the mix. So 75 in person and live, 20 to 25. And that went all the way to 100% at the heat of COVID.
Right.
And then it's kind of clawed its in person and live meetings. People are about the experience,
Yeah.
so virtual is fantastic. We leverage it all the time from a cost saving perspective. you can't even compete against live meetings can't even compete against it because of
Mm.
travel and everything that you're doing. So there is a definitely part of your meeting and event strategy should absolutely have a strong virtual component for a variety of reasons. It's an insurance policy for when things go wrong. It is an insurance policy when your budgets aren't hitting and you need to save money. So we envelop those strategies along with our clients to make sure that we service them both in person and live. And the technology is really important around that.
Okay, cool. Well, I have a couple of other kind of random questions, not
Yeah,
anything to do with what we just talked
let's
about.
go.
Other than I want to know, like, I know you don't have your hands in the business as much anymore. And I talk about as an entrepreneur too, working to get yourself to work on your business and not in the business as
Mhm.
much on the day to day. But when you think about that, what has been like, as you look at all of the things within this business that you've done, what's been your proudest moment?
I mean, just going back to, March of 2020, I mean, there's just no question. It was a pivot point that if we did not execute correctly, the company was going to close. I mean, we could not have survived with the number of team members we were trying to keep on if we had not successfully identified the technologies and implemented those technologies. So we had, our entire organization worked on, 80% live meetings. And so we had to retrain all those people in a matter of weeks to be able to execute on virtual meetings. They're totally different. There's different responsibilities. There's different technologies. There's different day-to-day actions. There's different things you have to teach your client about it. And we did that successfully. And I just can't thank my senior team enough. And then my entire organization for stepping up to the plate and being willing to learn all that stuff and make it happen. So it was definitely a pivotal moment in our history. And I will say we're very lucky that we came out with flying colors, but that's only because of the hard work of every single team member here at AMI.
Yeah, that's great. And so now thinking about the experiences that your teams have put together for companies, what's been your favorite one? Like,
We're doing a lot of work in the sustainability space now,
yeah.
and that has been real. It's really a personal passion of mine, and so we have been trying to be on the leading edge of offering sustainable solutions to our clients. So we've been running sustainability summits, both virtual and in person, for a lot of our clients to help them develop the strategies to go out and execute across their entire organization, whether it's how to reduce their manufacturing footprint and or their travel or how they are reporting their CO2. So those sustainability summits answer all those tough questions internally. They bring all the internal key stakeholders together. So that's been really impactful in the last couple of years, and we're seeing more and more of it.
Great.
More of our clients are doing it. So, and I do believe that the meetings and travel business, it's a huge drag on the on the on sustainability because it is what it is. It's putting people on planes, putting people in Ubers, putting people in hotels. So how can you do that with a sustainability focus? But not only that, how can you make the key decisions up front? Do you really need to go on site? Could you
Mm,
possibly do the event online? Could 20% of your people do online, and what is that carbon net benefit to your organization? So that's been probably the greatest thing and a thing I'm most proud of in recent years.
yeah, that's great. Okay. So what keeps you up at night as a leader?
All the ideas that I have.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I've got a great team that takes it with a grain of salt, but when you're working on the business and not in it, you have a much wider view, but you also don't have as much information because you're not in the day to day. So you don't know, is that client happy? Is that client not happy? How did that event go? If it was happening in Sydney, Australia, and you're sitting at the corporate office instead of there. So, having the trust of your team is just absolutely key, and releasing that responsibility. But what keeps me up at night is the constant ideas on how I can make the organization better because I have so many of the ideas, and then being able to filter those to the ones that really, really matter. That's that's definitely what keeps me up all night. got my pad next to my bed, which sometimes works, but most of the time doesn't help me sleep, because I want to solve the problem right there. Because there's, when you're running a service business, or matter of fact, any business, there's things that just are going to keep you up at night. The things that you don't. I think any successful entrepreneur is constantly asking questions. If they're not, then they're not going to get the answers that they need. If you just assume it's being done right, then, well, why is it being done right? And then let's expand upon that. Or if it's not being done right, how can we fix it? And so I think, always asking those questions will definitely keep you up at night, but also makes your organization stronger.
Absolutely. And I love to have teammates that are in that same curiosity mode. I have a
Yeah.
Google Note on my phone, the same thing, that if I wake up in the middle of the night, I just put it down because I know I'll forget in the morning, and I just throw it in there. So yeah.
I'm an Apple Notes guy, but same thing. I just do it all day long, for sure.
Exactly. Okay. Last question I have before we wrap it up. If you had a book that you would recommend to leaders, what would that book be?
Oh goodness! So I'm gonna go with an organization called EOS, which is the entrepreneurial organization. EOS, Entrepreneur Operational System. That's what it is. And we implemented that about 4 years ago here at AMI, and they've got a great series of books that focus on how to pull an entrepreneur yourself out of the business and the team that you need to do that. And I would highly recommend the entire series, because it really talks in terms of real life situations and examples of other entrepreneurs and what they're going in. And it's so funny, the stories they're talking about, like an IT firm in Dallas, and you're like, oh, well, that's me. That's what's happening at this organization. Why is Andy involved in this customer service issue when there's better people to be involved in it, and how can you pull yourself away that? So that's the EOS system is fantastic, and I highly recommend it.
Great. Andy, thank you so much. And I do have one last question.
Yeah.
If someone wanted to get a hold of you or get a hold of your company to find out more of what you do, I do have a lot of listeners that are in corporate America. Where would they go to find?
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah. So LinkedIn is where I hang out. Andy McNeill, at Andy McNeill on LinkedIn is the best place to reach me. Or you can always reach out to us at americanmeetings.com.
Okay. Fantastic. Andy, thank you so much for your time today. And for those of you listening, if you would like to have a little more clarity in your life and how you can have your business help run your life versus the business running your life, having you run your business so that you can have a life, please reach out to me. My website is in the show notes, and I would love to meet with you. So Andy, again, thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Debbie. Appreciate the time.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for listening. The song Ride is co-written and sung by Miss Jackie Wilson and her collaborators Tyler Banks, David DJ Lee, and Chris Renee. And a huge shout out to them for allowing us to use this perfect song. Everyone have a fabulous week, and I'll talk to you next week.